back to his right. He's got 4 receivers. Milroe looking, throwing deep. He's got Ryan Williams caught. He's running down the sideline. Breaks a couple tackles. Running. Touchdown, Alabama. What a play. Touchdown, Alabama.
And here's the snap. Hands it to Audric Estime, and that is and should be a touchdown. Here we go. Bryson Barnes has got his back behind him. It is Jaquindon Jackson. Here's the snap. Bryson Barnes looking deep. He's got a man. It's caught! He's got touchdown early. And good evening, everybody, and welcome. I'm Cooper Naylor, and welcome to College Football Wraparound. And we are so pleased that you are here with us tonight. This is our Q&A show. So let me explain what we're doing here tonight. To explain things is we're taking questions that you had and answering them. That's basically what we're doing. So any question you have regarding the upcoming season, then by all means, put it in the chat, and we'll try to answer it as best as we could. So Jack is here again with me. Jack, how are you?
Doing good, Cooper. How you doing tonight?
Pretty good. So we're going to dive into some great questions, I think. So I guess we can go ahead and get started.
Well, sounds good. Let's do it.
All right. So the first question I have comes from our chat, which if you are on YouTube or Facebook, we put out a post with the questions that we were going to ask. And so here's our first one. Colton Naylor says, who is the worst SEC head coach that you don't see being fired?
Okay, well, it was a pretty tough choice. I was looking at I got about 4 different ones. The top 4 I got that won't be fired. I'm looking at Clark Lee at Vandy, Mark Stoops at Kentucky, Shane Beamer in South Carolina, and Jeff Lebby. I think Sam Pittman's probably worse, but I think he gets fired. But the ones that are quote-unquote worse, I'll probably go with Jeff Lebby because they're just a second year at Mississippi State. They should give him a little more time. But, and I mean, State's worse than SEC. I still think he's a good coach, but just the worst ones that won't be fired. I'll go with Jeff Lebby.
Yeah, I mean, I got to agree. I think, to me, there's 2 that I think won't be fired. And that's Venables and I think Jeff Lebby. And I think similar, like you said, Jeff Lebby, it's only his second year at Mississippi State. They should, I mean, I feel like they're going to give him another chance after this year, even if it's not a good year. Brent Venables, I have a gut feeling like Oklahoma's going to turn it around. They're going to look really good this season. So I could see them having, in a world where Brent Venables is safe, because I think they'll be much better this year.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I've heard other people saying they've actually put John Mateer as a Heisman candidate, and they actually have him pretty high up. Several people do. So I think with him and the running back transferred in, I think Oklahoma will be a lot better. Yeah, I think he's safe.
Now, the only question becomes with John Mateer, which, I mean, I want to get your honest opinion on this. You know, they have the whole situation where it's the where he had the gambling stuff. So as far as what happens with that, what is your thoughts?
Well, I mean, anybody does financial stuff with Venmo knows that you put I think it's all mostly a joke. I don't think there's much to it. And I don't think much can come out of it because he claims it's all joking around. So I'm not too worried about that. But that whole Oklahoma team, I think, has a chance to be a really good team. But we'll see. It's going to depend on the offense. Because Brent Venables is going to take over the defense, calling the plays stuff. I think the defense will be a lot better or be just as good as they have been. If Mateer is as good as they say he is, and you know, I know there's been people say, well, he's coming from Washington State. He comes from a smaller school. But we can't use that example because we look at last year. Look at Cam Ward, where he came from and what he did at Miami. So the talent's there. If he plays up to his potential, and the receivers stay healthy. Let's not forget they had like 4 or 5 receivers missing games last year. They were down to like practically nobody, like walk-ons. So if their receivers stay healthy, running back stays healthy, and he plays what it is his potential, Oklahoma seems to be a really, really good team. So, yeah, I think Brent Venables, I think he's safe for his job.
Yep. Is there any? And I think you mentioned Mark Stoops in there too. Take me through that one.
Well, I mean, if you're going to look at, let's say, bad coaches, they're not bad coaches. Mark Stoops good, but the problem with him now is that you go back about 2 years ago when he basically took the Texas A&M job and then backed out of it. And you hear rumors, a lot of Kentucky fans were just really upset the way he did. So if they don't go out and win about 5, 6 games, if they don't, I can see him getting fired. I mean, I can see the man like, hey, you didn't want to be here 2 years ago after you built up a pretty good program. And then, from what you hear, they had a bunch of problems after all that. So I can see him getting fired. Clark Lee at Vandy, I think he's safe as Vandy. And, if they go out there and win 5, 6 games, he's going to look at one of the best coaches they've ever had, the way Vandy looks at it. But going back to Stoops, so Stoops is a good coach, but you can't, when you start messing around with other jobs and it really gets out there and everybody knows it, and he didn't really make a secret. He was actually wanting to go to A&M, and I don't know what happened in that whole deal. But, yeah, then you go back and basically ask for forgiveness. It's hard to really – and they struggled last year. I can't remember what they did record-wise, but they struggled. So I think it's going to be the same type of deal again this year with them.
Yeah, I agree. And I think – I want to say it was like somewhere in the range of like 2-10 to like 4-8 was like their record this year – or last year, I mean. So it wasn't good for Kentucky.
But they beat Ole Miss.
Yeah, they went to Ole Miss and beat them, which
right makes no
take
sense.
that for what that's worth. That was
right.
Yeah.
But
second question
okay. No, you're good. Let's go.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, what I was going to say is that the second question is the Big 12 underrated going into the season?
That's a tough one. I guess it depends on what you consider underrated. I don't think they have I wouldn't say a top 4 or 5 team. I don't think there's a team you go like they're a team to win national championship. But I think you have probably a group about 7, 8 teams that really got in that 8, 9, 10 win range. I think you got a bunch of good teams. There's some good stories coming out this year. It may be a little bit underrated. It may be the best overall conference as far as competitiveness. Because, I mean, you're going to look at, Reach Rod going back to West Virginia. I think he'll make them a better team. Scott Frost going to Central Florida, going back where he had really good success. I think it makes them good. I mean, Texas Tech put a lot of money in NIL and stuff. So I can see all that being really good. Colorado, we don't know what they're going to be. Technically, I think they may be better, but the record may not show it just because, I mean, you don't know. That's not even counting, BYU lost their quarterback with all the problems he had, and he had to leave. If he's there, they may be a top 10, top 5, top program. I think he was that good for them. I don't know. We'll find out about Baylor next Friday night. If Baylor goes out and beats Auburn next Friday night, then they'd be for real. So I think you've got a bunch of good teams, but I don't think there's one. I know Arizona State, everybody talks them up, but I just don't think there's one of the teams you go like, this team has a chance to make a Final Four. I call it Final Four, but like in the semifinals, I don't think you have one of the top teams there.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I just don't see a world where, like you said, I don't think the Big 12 gets a team into the semifinal round. As far as being underrated, it just depends on your outlook, like you said, of what you're looking at as far as the Big 12. Like, if it's just based off of do you have a team that can win the national championship, then I think that they're fairly marketed, in my opinion. But on the flip side, if you're looking at teams that are, like, if you're looking at it from a standpoint of, oh, this conference doesn't have a chance to have a team make the playoff. Now that's crazy because like those people, I feel like that makes no sense because I feel like at this point with the way that the format's made up, that
No.
basically the Big 12 is guaranteed a spot, whether you're 12 seed or if you find some way to get in the top 4 seeds, like, you know, or if you're somewhere in the middle with the way they changed up the format this year. So,
Well, I would expect to be more in the middle just because the format changed, you know, because I can't imagine you could potentially. I know we're going to talk about them later, like Iowa State and Arizona State, Iowa State, Kansas State. There's 2 or 3 teams that I think potentially could be up there, but I just don't know. I don't see a top 4 or 5 team in this league. I see a bunch of good teams, though. You know, let's wait and play the season, but that's what I look at, though.
And I mean, the thing I really love about the Big 12 is like they're out of the top 4 conferences in college football. It's the most unpredictable conference when it comes to the conference championship game because you don't know who's going to be there. Like last year, we all thought like for the first half of the season, oh, BYU's probably going to be there and they're probably going to end up playing. I don't remember who it was. I think it was like, I mean, some probably thought it was going to be BYU and Colorado playing.
One time it could have been. Right.
Yeah. And I mean, even like the last week, I think there was still like 5 or 6 teams that were in the playing for getting there. So,
right.
I mean,
yeah. Well, I'll just say, you know, when B12 first started, you know, you had Texas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Texas A&M in those conference, and you know they all dominated it. When they all left, it opened everything wide open. But even before they left, the last 7, 8 years, it was always Oklahoma. You knew they were going to be in the championship. Lincoln Riley had them in there every year. Stoops had them there, so you knew that was the team going to be there. And I forgot to mention Oklahoma State. That's the team that's really a wild card. We don't know what team's going to show up. You know, I think they're going to be better. Does that mean they're a team win? We don't know, but I do think they will be better. But going back, you know, once you lost Oklahoma, Texas, once they all left, it made the conference. You could say better, depending on how you want to look at it. It made it more competitive because, like you said, every week it's like you don't know who's going to win. You don't know. There's no one team you go, this is the best team, and it's clearly that was it. That was Oklahoma, Texas for years. Now they don't have that, and it makes it more fun to watch. I would hate to have a team in there that's my root for it, but it makes it fun to watch where, you know, Colorado could go up beat somebody. You don't know from week to week. So it depends on your definition underrated. I think it may be the best overall conference as far as fun to watch and competitive. I don't think it's the best conference, but I think it's the worst actually. But and it's debatable too between them and ACC. Obviously, the Big Ten and the SEC are the best too, but either way, I wouldn't call them underrated.
I agree. And what was I going to say? I think, oh yeah, and I've said this before, but if you truly look at Oklahoma State and you look at Mike Gundy, what he's done at Oklahoma State, it really is reminiscent of like what Mike Leach was able to do at each and every place he was at, where it's like he would have a couple years there where it's like, oh my goodness, this team legitimately has a chance to win the national championship. And then there would just be a year that was just a dud that would be right there in the middle. And that, honestly, Mike Leach and Mike Gundy, it's the same deal, but they're both, I mean, 2 of the greatest coaches, in my opinion, to have coached in this era.
And it must be pretty well likable because a lot of guys, if you look at Gundy, I think his record at Oklahoma's like, even as a player, like 3-20 something. I mean, he's only beat him a couple times. So how many other places would let you lose 15, 20 games to your arch rival and be like, you got to go? It's not because it's the competitive wise, they think they're the same, I would assume. But, you know, but he has struggled against Oklahoma. He did. But other than that, he's always did really good. And like I say, he must be well liked because they've left him there for, he's been there, almost 20 years, seemed like?
I think it is 20 years.
So, yeah, Leach was the same way. Leach was loved so well, but then he had some off-field issues at Texas Tech. He had Washington State won, and Mississippi State was down here winning to what happened. But, yeah, there's 2 of the better coaches, offensive mind coaches.
All right. Let's move on because we got a couple more questions from Colton that he posted in the chat. First one, do you think Coach Prime will leave after this season?
Ooh, that's a tough one. His health might get him. That might be the problem that gets him. I think, as far as coaching, no, I think he'd stick around, but the health might be the problem. I don't know the way to answer that.
Yeah. And I mean, I think this is, if you want to look at it from a standpoint of football, if you want to look at the football side of this, here's the question it becomes, because as a coach in college, he's only had one starting quarterback, and that's his son Shador.
Right.
Now you got a guy who's not your son anymore. I think it's Caden Salter is going to be the starting quarterback for them. I think he's the Liberty transfer. So the question that becomes for Colorado, what do they look like this year? And I do agree. I think talent, the way they play out in the football field, I think they'll be better, honestly, because I think some of the off-field distractions are gone now as far as the players that are on the team. That's my honest opinion. So I think they can now focus more on being a team and actually playing the game and trying to win. And they may not be better record-wise, like you said. But as far as him leaving, I totally agree. It's all going to come down to his health, I think.
Well, I was going to add to it also, as far as the quarterbacks, you're right. The Salter come from Liberty's transfer. You also picked up Julian Lewis, the 5-star at high school. So overall, your quarterback room is going to be better. I'm not saying they're better than Shador. What I'm saying is you have a legitimate backup. So if your star does get some injured, nagging injured, like Shador did the last 2 years, there were games where he was dragging around because he was hurt. You can actually take this guy out, and the guy backup should be, talent-wise, as good, if not better, than what you got. So that should make him better. I mean, if Lewis turns out to be obviously 5-star. So I think that helps them. But I do think you're right. I think the off-the-field stuff will kind of be minimum. But then, unfortunately with Deion's situation or Coach Prime, that's going to be talked about a lot. But he can handle that part. But you got a lot of ex-NFL players on that staff, with Warren Sapp's on there. Marshall Falk just went out there as assistant coach. So you got some NFL experienced people to actually help coach. So, yeah, I think they will be better. I don't know if the record will show it, but I think they will be better.
Yeah, I agree. And Colorado is definitely one of those teams that, and I think as far as storylines within college football this year, it almost seems like this is a really good year as far as talking season, because it just feels like there's so much more than usual to really talk about, which is kind of a crazy statement because there's always a lot going on right as the season before the season starts. There's so much to talk about. And so it is interesting.
Well, I think one reason so much to talk about is the 12-team playoff. Whether we like it or not, now you got so many more teams thinking we can get in that 12-team playoff. And you know that there's going to be at least each conference champion. So, if if we go back to the Big 12, if it's such a wide open conference that we think it is, and it's so even, then you got about probably, I'm going to say 7 or 8 teams sitting there thinking we got a shot to make the playoff because we can win our conference. So if you go back just 2 years ago, there's only 4 teams, they go, well, we're going to conference and, we got to hope we only got 1 loss or whatever. So I think that's one reason you got more talking points because you got that to be part of. So in the NIL, and there's a lot to it, but I do think the 12-team playoff has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to our next question. Is Michigan going to bounce back this year, and will Ohio State finally beat them?
Ohio State will beat them. I think they will beat them this year. Michigan going to bounce back? I don't know. That one, Well, what did Michigan go 7-5 last year?
Yep.
And I know what Harbaugh did. They won a championship 2 years ago, and I know that. I don't know. They go to Oklahoma. That's going to be the big one. They go to Oklahoma, I think, second week 2. They go so, win or lose. If they go out there and they look good, you go okay. But yeah, I would say they'll bounce back. I think they can win 8-9 games.
And I think the question for me which, before, like, right at the end of the regular season last year, and whenever we were looking at who was going where, freshmen who were staking their claim wherever they may go, they got Bryce Underwood. Now, from what I have seen, however, at least in spring, that they said that he struggled. So the question for me becomes, what does the quarterback position look like at Michigan?
And that's a good question, but you also got to remember Justice Haynes from Alabama transferred up there, so you get an experienced running back to go with that offensive line, which you always have a good offensive line. They're always going to be so you can lean on that offensive line in the running game to your quarterback meshes. And I had to go back and look at take away the Oklahoma game. Their first 3 or 4 games they play a couple easier games, but they get Oklahoma second week, and I think the 4th week they play Nebraska. So you got that. I don't know. I'm like you. He's got to ease into it, but once you go out to Oklahoma, that's going to be the big test. We'll find out. But there again, when freshmen go in early, he's been there since January, so he's got meshed in with them through the summer. So I think he'll be okay. If he is what they all say he is, we'll find out.
Yeah, and I think Michigan is definitely interesting, and I'm trying to see if I can find Michigan's schedule real quick so we can look at this, because I think you brought up a good point. Okay, so their first game is against New Mexico on the 30th. Right. Then the next week they go to Oklahoma. Then they have Central Michigan. Then they go to Nebraska, and then they have a bye week. So that's the first couple of weeks of the season for Michigan. I was
going to add to it, if I'm right, the head coach is going to miss the 3rd and 4th game. He's going to coach the first 2. Then he serves a suspension the 3rd and 4th game, I believe. And I think they may have added a 5th one or another game. So he's not going to be coaching when they play Nebraska. So that could be we don't know how you handle that head coach here. I know he coached a couple years ago. Harbaugh wasn't there, but so we'll see. So I don't know who's one steps up in this spot, but that could be a thing too. So and Nebraska's and their team will be very, very good this year. We'll find out about them pretty quick also. But ultimately, I
Here's
think
the question. Yeah. Here's the question I have though, because, and I mean, I understand like this whole movement of, oh, they cheated. They got to find some way to punish them. But how, if that is true, how do they allow you to coach the first 2 games, but then suspend you for games 3 and 4? How does?
Well, I think the school did that, but I'm like you. I don't understand the whole deal. Why would you? I don't know. I'm with you. I don't really completely understand that. You would think you just take the first 2 games and you're done. First 2, then show up for week 3. But I don't know. But Harbaugh said that 2 or 3 games a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm with you. I don't completely understand either.
Yeah, that's crazy. So the next, and for my side of the Ohio State thing, I think they will. Ohio State's that game's going to be really good this year. However, with the game being up at Michigan, I think it will be. I think it go either way. That's just my honest opinion.
Yeah.
So, I will say this: if it were there at Ohio State, then I would be like, oh yeah, Ohio State's going to win that game because they should win that game at home. But with it being at Michigan, that makes it different. Right.
Well, I mean, the fact is they lost last year to them at home and turned around won that championship. So I don't know. I do think that they got more talent than Michigan. They should beat them. They should have beat them last year. It's hard to me to sit there right now and say that Michigan's going to beat them. Knowing Ohio State's got it. I know Ohio State got a new quarterback, but, you got the receivers. You got the whole unit. Yeah, I'm going to Ohio State.
All right, let's move on to our next question, which is, do you think the ACC will implode soon? And if so, who stays and who do they add to rebuild?
Ooh, that's a good one. Yes, they will implode soon. It may be a year or two, but they will implode. Who stays? Well, unfortunately, you're probably going to look at Wake Forest. Um, I won't say Duke. I don't know. It just I hate to throw Wake Forest in there. Wake Forest, Georgia Tech, probably. I'll go back this way. I'm looking at Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, maybe Louisville, Miami's talked about. I think those 4 or 5 are probably gone, and Duke may go with North Carolina just because. And when they leave NC State, well, yeah, Texas and they'll split. So I mean, I do think Duke and Carolina will probably stay together. Stay together. Virginia, they talk about them going. I don't know. When you talk about who's there to build over, I don't know. It probably start with Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, potentially a Duke or NC State. Ooh, Virginia Tech. I don't know. And it just reality. I think within a couple of years, it's done. I think they're done.
Yeah, I will bring up one thing, and that is from stuff I've heard, it would be a uphill battle. Say if North Carolina wants to leave, but if NC State does not, it's the same type deal as like USC and UCLA had before both of them went together to the Big Ten.
Yeah.
I feel like they would have to make some agreement where both of them go together wherever they're going. Now Duke, I don't think would be included in that. I think it's just North Carolina and NC State. So I will say this. And I think the first two, in my opinion, the first two that are leaving, I think it's pretty well known, is going to be Clemson and Florida State. They've already expressed their intent to want to leave, but with all the legal stuff and all that, they're just contractually binded at the moment, I guess, until they're willing to pay the money to get out of there. I think it's really the big deal at this moment.
Yeah, but if you actually look at the agreement, there's a lot of stuff in that you really got to dig into. First of all, I think it cost them about 120, 130 million now, like this year. It goes down every year. But I read one thing, so there's an agreement in there that said if, say, 4 schools or more wanted to leave and join what they call a quote-unquote super conference, they could do that in a certain sport and still stay a member of the ACC and the rest, everything else. Saying that you have Clemson, Florida State, let's say North Carolina, and Louisville. Let's just use those 4. They decide that they want to leave, and they leave together as a group and go to, let's just say the SEC. Let's just throw it in there to go play football. But they can stay in the ACC and everything else. Same with Notre Dame. Notre Dame is an ACC member and everything but football. So they made the same type of agreement for the whole conference, but it has to be, I think it's 4 or more had to go. So, yeah, it's going to happen because it's too much money. When you're sitting there, and I'll tell you this, I don't know if you've seen this or not. When you talk about the money-wise, there's a guy, I think maybe last weekend, to give Kansas $300 million. It was an investment guy. Oh, $300 million. So this $100 million, whatever that you would owe, and it goes down every year. There's enough people. I'll give you a name for North Carolina. What, Michael Jordan? You think he can just turn and write a check? They want to go. Let's go. Florida State. There's enough. They want to get together, and I think they've done a lot of stuff behind the scenes because reality, Florida State and Clemson got the recognition for suing the ACC and all this, but North Carolina, Virginia, their schools were sitting behind the scenes and just watching it and building up their resume, going, okay, we're gonna see what y'all do. And then when you come to an agreement where the whole agreement is really crazy because you get more money if your TV ratings are better. Well, obviously, football-wise, we know that Florida State and Clemson are going to draw really good football-wise. We know get the basketball with North Carolina, they're going to draw really good. So you're catering to these teams. Plus, Clemson, they give them immunity where they can actually override stuff. If stuff comes up and they have to conference vote, well, Clemson don't like that. No, we're not going to do that. So you're allowing these 4 or 5 schools to rule your whole conference, which is the same thing that happened 20 years ago at the Big 12, and they let Texas and Oklahoma rule everything. And it ruined the Big 12. I know they've bounced back, but it's not what it was. The Big 12 was a really good conference when it started out with the M and A&M, and it's going to be the same deal with ACC. It's going down the same road. So they're going to implode. It's just a matter of it's going to be in a year or 2 when it's going to be. Maybe next summer. It may come out next summer and be like, it's over with. We're done. And we know TV, ESPN is going to push behind the scenes for Clemson, Florida State, and Miami. They want them to join the SEC. And you have two major conferences, which is what I think is coming. And just matter a couple. Then I've done 5 years. I think we're going to have basically two conferences. That's going to be it.
I agree. And I think for the most part that the ACC, most of their teams are going to split between the SEC and the Big Ten. That's just what I see happening. Then the rest of them, which I feel like, say if the ACC completely implodes and there's literally nobody left in the ACC, like your Wake Forest, Georgia Tech, Wake Forest and Georgia Tech, I feel like would be two that would go to the Big 12. I just feel like they fit the Big 12 model better. Plus, if you're Georgia Tech, I don't know. They've always said they're never going back to the SEC. So that's the one question I have about that is are they going to stick to what they've said, or are they going to go where the money's at and go to the SEC? Only time can tell.
Well, we use the same example in North Carolina. You're one of the founding members of the ACC, and their AD come out last week or week before and made a comment, well, basically, we got to do what's right for our school. So you're basically putting it out there that we're going to do this. But what you could do, and I'd have to sit there and kind of look it over, you could bring Virginia Tech, Syracuse, maybe get Maryland to come back and join the Big East. Start the Big East back up like they had years ago. The Big East was really, really good in basketball years ago. And they had good, Miami was in the Big East. You had Miami, Virginia Tech. They were in the Big East and come down to ACC. So you could start the Big East back up. And then, they have it in basketball. So, there's a lot of things you could do. And I don't know. There's so much, but I'm afraid that the ACC is probably going to implode pretty soon.
And I will say, to your point about Maryland, it would be really hard, I think, to get Maryland to leave the Big Ten, especially with the money and all that. Which, sadly, that's all it is. It's just go where the money's at. That's what it's become. And that's the sad thing. It's kind of ruined college athletics, if you want to be honest.
Well, the truth is, I have a hard time remembering Maryland in the Big Ten. They were ACC for so long. It's still hard for me to remember they're actually Big Ten. So, yeah. But you're right. I don't see nobody leaving Big Ten. Why would you do that? Because you're making more money than everybody. So, and add more. And if they get more teams come in, it's more money for them. So, yeah, that's. But again, you go Syracuse, Virginia Tech, West Virginia, I know the Big 12. Still, you got all these teams up in the East that you could actually make the old Big East again. But, I hate it because the ACC basketball was so good, but I just don't think it's going to make it too much longer.
All right, let's move on to our next question. What would be the biggest surprise upset this season?
Ooh, let's see. Well, I have to look at the schedules, but trying to top of my head, somebody's going to lose in week one and we're not going to expect. I don't know if it's, I'm trying, I have to look at the schedules, kind of get an idea. Okay, I'm trying to think, would Boise State go to Notre Dame be a big upset? Could be. But, I think Arkansas plays Notre Dame this year. What about Wisconsin come to Tuscaloosa beating Alabama? I know there's bigger upset. There could be, I don't know. Let's see. I'd have to look at some schedule because there's some out there, and I do know at first weekend there's going to be somebody going to get beat. We're going to be like, well, you're not going to see it coming. It's going to be a D2 school or FBS school. It's going to be FCS school. FCS school is going to be the FBS school. Somebody, it happens. You have Marshall a couple years ago beat Notre Dame. Years ago, App State went to Michigan. Oklahoma State lost to, I think they lost somebody last year. So, and James Madison beat Virginia Tech years ago. So, yes, there will be somebody, but without me kind of looking at the schedule, I can't really give one right now.
One that I think, I know this is like really random, and it happened like years and years ago, but I remember watching, I think Central Michigan beat Oklahoma State. I remember watching that game. That was crazy.
Well, now Tennessee lost to somebody a couple years ago. I forgot who they lost to. Oh, we were watching it too, and I can't remember who that was beat them, but they lost one. So it happens. I mean, but it's a good question. But I'd have to look at the schedule and kind of get a. We'll look. Maybe I'll give you. Maybe I'll post it who I think it'd be, but I can't think of that right now.
All right. Our next one. Who will be the first coach fired and why?
Ooh, that's a good one too. First coach fired. I'm going to Sam Pittman. I don't think if I go, that's it. I don't know him. Maybe the guy Virginia Tech. I'll give you a surprise. Maybe Lincoln Riley. People talking about them being a potential playoff team this year. So, yeah, they struggled last year too. So, I don't know. What are you thinking?
I'll say this. As far as Lincoln Riley, that one wouldn't. I mean, at least me personally, that doesn't shock me. Because if you look at the standard that USC has, and I mean, I don't know if you saw it, but I think Brett McMurphy put out his the most overrated teams during the playoff era, and I think he put USC number 1 as far as most overrated over in that time frame. Because every single year, everybody looks at them and they're like, "Oh, they're a playoff team." And every single year, they find a way to lose way too many games, and they can't find a way there. And so, Lincoln Riley, that doesn't shock me personally. I think, and I mean, I don't think this is going to happen, but I feel like maybe this is just me taking the easy road. But if Auburn, depending on the way they lose to Baylor in the first game of the week, let's say they go to Baylor and they absolutely get their butts kicked real bad. Say it's 59 to 10. It's the final score of the game. Hugh Freeze will be fired after that game, in my opinion, because Auburn will not tolerate that, in my opinion.
Well, I thought of another one. Mike Norvell, Florida State. If they come out there, if Bama beats them really bad, and if they look bad first 2-3 weeks, he could be one of the first ones. So there are several candidates, but I don't know. I just, Brent Venables. Everybody's got them built up. What if they come out? What if Michigan beats them at week 2? Then they go. They go to Texas again. They've got 2 or 3 losses. That they may say, well, you know what? We're just going to cut our ties and be done with it. So another one I think I've heard people say on the hot seat is Tony Elliott at Virginia. I hadn't really kept up with it, but that's another one that's so. There's several, but and you know what? Honestly, probably come October 1st, there'll be somebody will be fired. Be like, we didn't see that one coming, but I see why. Yeah. Okay, I got one more, and just because off the field stuff, Bill Belichick. If they go out there and they start losing because of all the stuff with his girlfriend and things going, they may say, you know what, we should never did this, and it's going to depend. The first month, October 1st, there'll be somebody gone.
Right. And the thing that intrigues me about that is because, with all the off the field stuff, and I know you're going to laugh at me about this comment, but Colorado, since Deion's been there, it's been so it's felt like very Hollywood there in Boulder, Colorado. I mean, with all the media coverage and just the whole shebang that's there, it's interesting, like you said, will North Carolina take the route of Colorado and just basically embrace all the media coverage, or will they find, if they're not winning, like you said, are they just going to just be done with it? That'll be interesting.
Well, the part to be interesting is if we go back and look, I think ESPN an article about a month ago talking about Colorado, that the economic impact that Coach Prime has had at Colorado, season tickets, or they've sold out season tickets, and just the millions of dollars they brought in that university in that area. So, yes, money talks. So yeah, you would deal with that. North Carolina's already got, I don't know. It's a basketball school. If he goes there and starts struggling, who knows? Mac Brown, they run him off. They were trying to run him off probably sooner he would leave, and he didn't want to leave. So you basically had to force him out. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how they do because they play TCU at first at Labor Day night. So we'll see. And then, we go from there.
Yep. All right. I wanted to bring up a question that I saw today, and I really want to get your opinion. So, Auburn, today, they have decided that they are going to claim 7 more national championships, including the 2004. They're going to claim their 2004 national champions, even though they didn't play for the national championship game. So, here's my question to you. Do you think that they have a point with claiming this, or do you think that do you think this is just baloney?
Well, they have no 4 team has a point because I do think there was some poll that voted them national champion. I don't remember some. If you look at the article, there was one. It was 83. One of the teams. It was some poll that nobody's ever heard of, but yeah, I would just wait for your time. But they're used to you'd have AP. It was called a UPI, which turned into the coach's poll, and everybody had a poll. Phil Steele would have a poll now. I mean, you go back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, so everybody had polls. And in fact, Arkansas claims championship in 1964. Alabama does too. So everybody does it. But the Auburn thing, yeah, it's a little petty, I could say. But I understand it, though, because it's a marketing ploy. Now they can go out there and they can promote to the public, hey, we're, I think, 9 now.
Yep.
7-time or 9-time national champion. Okay, instead of 3 or 2. So, but for the 04, they have a point because they were undefeated, and there was somebody that did vote them in. But I had a guy tell me today, we were the best team in America that year. I told him, no. They played USC in 02 and 03 and got smacked both times. So there's no way they would have beat that USC team. In fact, Oklahoma had a really good team that year and lost like 55-13, I think it was. Something that, USC killed them in the bowl game. So, no. Auburn got shut out. USC shut them out one of those 2 years forward. And this is with Cadillac and Ronnie Brown. So, yes, Auburn was better that year. You had 4 guys that were first-round draft picks off that team. They had a good team, but no, they would not. But as far as the championship, yes, I get that. The 83 team, they lost 1 game. I think Texas beat them earlier in the year. They played in Sugar Bowl against Michigan, and look, it was like 9-3. I think the final score. It was a really bad game. But somebody named the national champion. So, good for Auburn. Take your championships. It's fine. But the 2010 team, yes, they legitimate. 57 team, yes. Those were legitimate. And in reality, Alabama's probably got a few that may not be considered legitimate. But then Alabama's got several that, like I said, back then, you had what was called UPI back then. It was the press, you had the Associate Press and all that. So, yeah, they did get split champions until, they come up with the BCS. You had split champions. In fact, Nebraska and Michigan split in 97. It's a very good documentary you need to watch about, I think, AC Network has showed it. You had those two, So it's happened. Colorado and Georgia Tech split it in 1990. So you've had split champions. But unfortunately, you were able to get teams to play because of the way everybody's lined up in bows. You couldn't get teams matched up. But when they did, then you had true national champions. But I understand it, and they said that they're going to honor Cam Newton and Tyrus Jersey when they play Georgia. Okay, I get that. It's all marketing because, you can use it now in recruiting and also, yeah, it's good. And Alabama, hey, they've won 18 national champions. So, yeah, it is something. And you are. And I like what AD said. Honestly, he said it was time for them to honor student athletes that played on those teams. They should get honored. They should get that. And there should be no problem with it. Yeah, we'd have a little laugh about it because something like 1910, I think it's one of them may claim, and 1912, 57, 58. Yeah, but Alabama claims some 1941, 70s, I think 34. So, yeah, you got all these. It's like, okay, but you got, like I said, you go back years ago. In fact, I read one thing that said Alabama, I think the 41 team or one of them, They finished at number 20 in the AP poll, but yet the school claims national championship. So there you go. But that's the way it was back then. And it's, I mean, like I said, 04 team, Tuberville says we're national champions. Okay. Central Florida said they won one in 2016, 17, where it was. The year Alabama won it. They were undefeated with Scott Frost. We're national champions. Okay, the guys on the stadium. Good, go ahead, claim it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it.
I think. Okay, so here's the way I'll premise this: the ones where you didn't actually have a national championship game, that it was all done by polls. I'll go and pass. I'm like, okay, because there's no championship game. Go ahead, claim it. That's all. Do you and decide. Where I personally have a problem is the ones where it's like 2004. You didn't play for it. UCF, you didn't play for it. You did, although you were left out of a chance to play for it. You didn't play for it. So if you didn't play for it, I can't sit there and say you're national champions because you didn't play for it. That's my honest opinion on that.
No, you're right. And I totally agree with you. The 04 Auburn team, here was their problem. And Auburn people may not like this, but if you go back to the 04 season, USC and Oklahoma stayed 1-2 pretty much all year. I didn't go back and pull up the polls, but they were pretty top all year. I think Auburn started down in 15 range somewhere. They were a little bit lower, but they were a great team. You can't deny when you have Ronnie Brown, Cadillac Williams, Jason Campbell, I'm trying to defensive back. They had defensive back that were all like first round draft picks. So the team was good, Tuberville, and he had a good coaching staff. But you go that far up, and if you're USC and Oklahoma, you had 3 undefeated teams. So you're not going to drop. And then now play major conferences. Okay, USC was in the Pac-10 at that time, the Big 12, and I don't, Oklahoma had to beat Texas. May have been them twice. I really don't remember who they played, but back then you'd have Texas, Nebraska, the whole conference. It was going to be hard for you to jump them. You didn't have a non-conference game. You go, oh, we beat, we went to Michigan and beat them in non-conference. So, but the thing, the reason 04 teams is even more debate is because USC got put on probation, and technically, by the record books, they had to vacate the championship. So if that's the case, it would left Oklahoma and Auburn. But I go back to the fact that Auburn played USC the 2 years before, home and home, and just it really wasn't even one of them. I think they got about 20-0 at California and lost them at Auburn. I just don't think they would have beat the USC team. You're talking about Reggie Bush, Matt Liner, that whole group. Mike Williams, that might have been receiver. You just, I mean, I'm not sure about the receiver, but still, a USC team was that good. Oklahoma was that good too. So, the 83 team is the one that probably, they may have been the best team, but, they lost. I believe they lost at Texas early in the year. And then, won the rest of them, but they didn't look really good against Michigan. And that's when a lot, again, it goes back to the voters. The voters didn't vote them in. So, it's all, when you go back then, when it was just voting, you just had to take it on the field. Everybody said the eye test, but it was the eye test back then. And if you were lucky, you had a couple of times, like late 80s, Penn State and Miami played each other. Because the way the bowls lined up, they were able to kind of get together. Alabama, Miami played the Sugar Bowls. But there were a lot of times that you didn't have it. You'd have the top teams playing all different bowl games. And then you'd go, oh, who think's the best team? Well, just let's go vote. So, but I know Auburn don't. But honestly, for Auburn, I don't blame them. As a school, claim them. I mean, everybody claims them. Like I said, Alabama claims all these. And, like I said, Arkansas claims one. I didn't know they claimed one a few years ago. I was watching a documentary about Jerry Johnson. They were on that team, so it was good. I think, it's whatever. It is what it is. It's a marketing ploy.
Yep. Well, that is going to pretty much do it for tonight. Of course, the plans are Thursday night, we're going to do an Oklahoma preview with Colton. And then, of course, Saturday morning, we're going to have a pre-taped college football wraparound for you to begin the season. Reason for that, we are going to be going to the Western Kentucky game. They're hosting Sam Houston State. So won't be able to do the show live. However, we do plan to get some type of content at Western Kentucky. So be ready for that. And then, of course, next week, next week we're going to start getting you set for the week 1 games. Then, of course, the first game broadcast of the season will be Jacksonville State and UCF right here on Saber Broadcast Network. We're so excited. Plus, that game is behind a paywall of ESPN Plus. And most people who aren't like huge sports fans aren't going to pay, the $13 a month. But I do pay for it. So I'll give you the commentary. So come watch me do the commentary of the game so that you don't have to go pay for it. So,
well, let's not forget we'll do game picks too.
Oh yeah, we'll do some game picks and very excited for that. Also, if you haven't voted on the games for this weekend, you can either go to the Facebook page and look at it, or you can go to the community post on YouTube and you can vote. You may have to scroll down a little bit because we've been busy posting our top players, which we may get into that a little bit next week, talk about that. But of course, may have to scroll down a little bit, but that is what it is. So anything else you want to say?
No, just saying I'm ready for football, and I thought we was going to try to get in some picks. I'm sorry, maybe I rambled on a little too much, but I enjoyed the time. We'll get ready to do some picks and ready for the football.
Yeah, I'm excited. So, folks, that is pretty much it, and we will see you again later. Good night, everybody.